Hi guys, Hippopotamus here, and today I'm bringing you another DZ build. This is my perfect spotter build, so let's go through this the normal way, and I'll show you the key points, and we'll get to everything as we get to it. So to start with, the specialization, I'm using the Technician. There's a few reasons for this. The extra skill tier is very nice, helpful. EMP grade can be quite useful. But the main thing is that I've had to take rifle here, which gives me the linked laser pointer, which is great. Anything with a long barrel, it allows you to put a linked laser pointer on, and what that does is it spots the enemy for you, allowing you to do the extra damage. Now, you will notice something. I don't have marksman rifle damage here because I've got other builds on this character that use other weapons more. But I would suggest, if this was your only build, to put on marksman rifle damage. Again, you could spread out points a little bit if you wanted to, but in this case, that's how I use mine, because the marksman rifle is doing quite a lot of damage anyway. The 15% is nice, but it's not something that I'm going to change other builds for. So that's the reason why I don't have marksman rifle on the tree. However, I would say to you, if you're not using other builds that don't use that, then have the synergizing marksman rifle damage there. Okay. Let's go down and show off the build. So to start off with, I'm using the Kingbreaker. This shouldn't really come as much as a surprise based on its talent. So I've got assault rifle damage, health damage, and damage to targets out of cover. And then it has the talent Perfect Flatline. So when enemies are pulsed, gives us 20% extra weapon damage, which is great. Okay, so on the long rail, I am using that linked laser pointer. You can see there, I am using the linked laser pointer, and then I'm just using crit damage around it because I've got plenty of crit chance, which we'll go through in a minute. For my second weapon, I'm using the Nemesis. Now for the Nemesis, this has marksman rifle damage, headshot damage, and damage to armor. Again, it's fine to have damage to targets out of cover. If you get that, that's probably much better for you. 6% damage to armor is okay. It's the second best, but by far, if you can get damage to targets out of cover, that would be much better for you. And obviously, the talent is that when we hold down the trigger, it increases the damage up to 100% based on how long you hold the trigger and release. So if you fully charge, you're going to get an extra 100% weapon damage based on the time that you hold that down. For the pistol, I'm using the TDI card. Again, this is just for the extra skill tier and for the talent preservation. So if we kill an enemy, we get 10% armor over 5 seconds, and a headshot's going to improve that for another 10%. So that's going to give us 20% over 5 seconds. If we get hurt or we're in a landmark, we just need a little bit of quick health, and we don't want to use a med kit, we can just pull this out, get a headshot, and this is going to give us some regen because we have none other than our med kits. Okay, so on to the build. So this is going to come as a bit of a surprise to some people because I have seen this build built slightly differently. However, this is my take on it. Because I do aim for the head, I don't just solely body shot. I feel like headshot damage is kind of important. So that brings us to our first point. We have one piece of Providence here, and this has headshot damage. It's rolled with weapon damage, critical hit damage, headshot damage, and crit hit damage. This is all going to make a bit more sense as we go on, but you will see that what I'm trying to get here is crit chance, crit damage, and headshot damage across the board. So if you see some unusual rolls here, you will understand why once we get to the end of the build. For the backpack, I'm using the gift, and I understand this might be quite difficult for some people to get. It doesn't have to be the gift as far as, the exact named piece. You could have one that wasn't named if it was easier to get. Fortunately for me, I have the blueprint for this and I can craft it. So the second piece is going to give us 8% crit chance, which is really good. I've rolled a armor core on the top, and we have crit chance, crit damage, and headshot damage. The talent is Perfect Vigilance, and this gives us 25% extra weapon damage while we're not taking damage. If we do take damage, it takes 3 seconds for it to come back, which is down from 4 seconds from the non-perfect variant. So really all this has given us is a second less to get our damage back if we take a hit. It's not really that important, but nice to have if you've got it. Okay, so on to our third piece. So this is going to give us critical hit damage because it's the third piece of Providence. And again, this brand set is giving me everything that I really want. I want crit chance, crit damage, and headshot damage. This is rolled with weapon damage. It has a roll of crit hit damage and crit hit chance. And that's going to be that for those pieces. Now onto my other pieces. I am using the Closer chest piece, and I would recommend using Closer for its talent because it's going to give us 5% extra weapon damage, which, is great. It's really, really good. So this gives us 5% total armor, nothing really with the amount of armor that we have. We have an armor roll, we have crit hit chance, crit hit damage, and an in-slot mod of headshot damage. The talent Perfect Spotter amplifies total weapon damage, so note it says amplifies, which is a multiplicative bonus rather than an additive bonus, by 20% to enemies that are pulsed. Okay, so enemy that we pulse, either through the linked laser pointer or through a pulse, we're going to deal 20% multiplicative damage to. That ties in really, really nice with our assault rifle that has the Perfect Flatline talent on it, which again amplifies damage. So with these two, we're getting 40% amplified damage if an enemy's pulsed. Okay, so I'm using a piece of Fenris. This gives me 10% assault rifle damage because this is my on-hand weapon. This is going to be the main weapon that I'm going to be using as I move around. And this is rolled with armor, crit chance, crit damage. So it's going to give us nice stats that we want. And I'm using one piece of Cheska, and this is giving me 8% crit chance. It's rolled with weapon damage, crit chance, crit damage. Okay, so for my skills, I have the decoy. Again, a lot of this is to do with sniping. If I throw the decoy down and I'm stood looking through a scope, I don't really want a nameplate above my head giving my position away. It might make me an easy target, and especially with much lower health than normal. We're only sat at 1.4 million here, 1.3 potentially if you don't have the rolls into your gear. So you're going to be quite squishy compared to other characters or players, and you're going to reflect that, especially in your nameplate when people look at how much health you have. So yeah, the decoy is an absolute must. This shouldn't really come as much of a surprise, but I have a pulse because our Nemesis has no way of pulsing an enemy. We cannot put a linked laser pointer on it. So this allows me to pulse and then body shot at an enemy, and I'll gain that little bit of extra damage back that I would otherwise have missed. Okay, so for my grenade, I've just gone for a regular grenade here because if I down an enemy, I really don't want to be chucking an EMP grenade. However, it's up to you. If you want to put the EMP grenade on, you can always switch. You can do that on the fly. But yeah, I feel like a standard concussion grenade here. If I down an enemy and they're behind cover, I don't want to be throwing an EMP at them. I want to be throwing a grenade to finish them off. Okay, let's just check the range so we can benchmark as always. Okay, so we're on heroic. So let's go through the numbers. And a quick disclaimer here, I am watch level 10,000. If you don't have all your watch levels, your numbers might vary. So if you're over at watch level 1,000, you'll be able to get the same numbers as me, remembering that I have put some levels of expertise into this. So obviously that is something to consider too. Okay, so for the weapon talents, I've got Perfect Flatline, Electromagnetic Accelerator, and Preservation. For my weapon stats, I'm hitting as the following. So you can see that we've taken quite a lot of crit, and we're at 56% crit damage, so crit chance, so that's a good number, only 4% off the cap. And we're hitting for a very high 162% crit damage, which is great. The other thing is that I also have a fair bit of headshot damage. Now, if I aim for the head with this crit chance and crit damage, because you can get critical headshots, this is where this build really shines. If you can hit the head consistently and aim for the head, you're going to be doing really, really big damage. Okay, so just switch over. So, for the Nemesis, this is the reason why I chose the Providence pieces. So, I did build this build the other way around, and I used a piece of Cheska and Grupo, and then used a couple of other pieces. And I just found that the headshot damage just wasn't enough on the Nemesis to put down bigger players, players that had maybe over 1.8 to sort of 2.2, maybe 2.5 million. It's just not going to happen. So I needed more headshot damage. So this is why I've gone the Providence route, and that's why I've gone slightly different from everybody else that you probably see running a spotter build the way that they do. So the extra headshot damage serves me quite well. Okay, just go through a couple of other things here. Okay, so onto the weapon damages. Remembering that I am not using the specialization trees marksman rifle damage, so I could have an extra 15% to my marksman rifle. I would tell you that is a good idea if you were going to do that, because it's going to give us some extra damage, okay? So using Perfect Vigilance and Perfect Spotter. We're using Providence, using Energetica, Fenris, and Cheska. We have just a little over 1.4 million armor. Again, with my expertise levels, this would be closer to 1.3. And we're using the decoy and the pulse. So, I'll just set up a couple of targets here. Now, obviously, again, as I always say, if you want to see gameplay, I can do that. I just show the builds in these videos, but if you want gameplay, I will do a separate video. Okay, so you can see that we're hitting for, when we pulse, we're hitting for pretty big numbers. Again, I don't need to necessarily pulse with this because I have a link laser pointer. So in an emergency situation where we're not sniping, if we're shooting at a target that, you know, does warrant shooting it close, I guess, is the thing that I'm trying to say, or they try and surprise us, I don't need to be pressing the pulse button. I already have it on my weapon ready to go. Okay, so let's just... Okay, so for long range, obviously, we've got a couple of choices. We can just aim for the head, straight out, that is no problem. We're going to want to charge up fully, and we're hitting for about 7 million. But if we just bring that target a little closer, just to make sure that we hit it with the pulse. If we pulse, get that target pulsed, we're hitting for 13 million, which is enough to one-shot any enemy, really, in PvP. Anything over about 10, 11 million is a one-shot, so... But we do need to pulse. The other reason that we have a high crit chance crit damage, if we can't hit the head, like I said, we can just shoot at the body, which sometimes is much easier. So, yeah. Okay, so, I mean, the other things is that we do have the pistol. Again, if we get a little hurt at a landmark, we can just throw a decoy down, distract enemies. If we're low on medkits or whatever, shooting enemies is going to give us that little bit of regen, especially if we shoot in the head. Again, we have headshot damage as well, so that's going to make it that little bit easier to get that extra 10%. And like I said, if we down an enemy by shooting them, let's say we down that enemy there, and they're hidden behind cover, I don't want to be throwing an EMP grenade at them. I want to be throwing a concussion, something that will finish them off. And that's the reason why we have the concussion equipped as default. Okay, hope you enjoyed that video. See you all in the next one. Really appreciate you checking this one out. Okay, more to come. See you soon.